Today's lesson deals with constructing translations, the count and graph method, and the general rule method. Your learning target says, I can use either the count and draw or the general rule methods to accurately translate a figure. For this activity, you will need some graph paper. So if you don't have any, I want you to pause, go get it, and come back. All right, so your directions say, on your graph paper, draw your coordinate plane, meaning your x-axis, which is your horizontal number line, x-axis, and your y-axis, which is your vertical number line. Those intersect at something called the origin at 0, 0. Back to the directions, it says, then plot the following points. Remember, the first number in the pair is your side-to-side number, also known as your x-coordinate. The second number is your up and down number, also known as your y-coordinate. When you have all of your dots graphed, connect them in alphabetical order. All right, so I'm not going to be able to draw my numbers because I have a little bitty graph paper here, but I can draw my hash marks. So I see that my first coordinate is going to be at -5, so I'm going to go to the left 5 spaces, +3, up 3. So I'm going to start counting -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and then I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put my dot. I'm going to call that A. All right, B is sitting also at -5, so -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, all to the left, and 5 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So B is right here. Whoops, my dot. Call it B. All right, you keep going. When you're done, connect your dots. Pause me while you're doing this and come back when you're all done. So if you did yours correctly, your graph paper should look like this. Now I want you to take each one of those points and I want you to translate it 7 spots to the right, and then plot the point and label it with a prime mark. So you're going to pick up A, you're going to move it 7 to the right, you're going to place it down and call it A prime. You're going to pick up B, count it 7 to the right, plot it, and call it B prime. Do that for each of your points. A little side note down here, the rule for this transformation is x plus 7y, because you're adding 7 to your side-to-side or your x-coordinates, but you're not moving up or down at all, so your y-coordinate is unaffected. So go ahead and translate each of your points 7 to the right. If you did it correctly, this is how your paper should now look. All right, so we're going to translate again. I want you to go back to your pre-image. In my case, it was the green arrow. And I want you to translate each and every one of those points, 4 to the right and 5 down. And this time when you plot it, you need your letter and 2 prime marks. So our rule down here, I'm moving 4 to the right, so I'm adding 4 to my x-coordinate, and I'm moving 5 down, so I am subtracting 5 from my y-coordinate. But for now, you're simply counting and moving. So pick up your A, count 4 to the right, 5 down, plot it, and call it A double prime. Do that for each of your dots. Pause me while you're working. If you did it correctly, your graph paper should now look like this. So we've been practicing the count and draw method. Now that method is good if my shape is pretty simple and I'm not moving it a tremendous amount and by whole numbers. But things can get a little tricky if I have a more complicated shape or I'm moving by more irrational types of numbers or larger numbers. So our general rule method might come in handy in those cases. So here's the table that I gave you for your interactive math notebook, and you're going to see that I have my pre-image coordinates right here in our first column, and their general rules are just x, y. In this column, I know what I want to translate by. So it says I want to translate 6 to the right. So keep in mind that my x coordinate is my side-to-side number, and my y-coordinate is my up and down. So I want to slide my side-to-side 6 to the right. So I'm going to take that x-coordinate, and since it's going to the right, I'm going to add 6 to it. And I'm not shifting up or down, so my y-coordinate will remain y. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to look at this first ordered pair. It was -5 in the x spot. If I take -5 and I add 6 to it, I will end up with 1. And if I don't change the y-coordinate, it'll stay 3. And so after I've translated, this is my new ordered pair. Look at my second one. It's no longer going to sit at -5 because I'm going to add 6 to it. So it's going to move to 1. And my y-coordinate is unchanged. I want you to pause me and finish this column of ordered pairs for when you translate 6 to the right. Pause and work, come back when you're ready for checking. So here are the answers that you should have in the first column, which is the result of translating your pre-image 6 units to the right. So let's look at this column right here. And this time I want to translate my pre-image 10 down. So my general rule is not going to be the same. I'm not going left or right, so my x-coordinate is unchanged, but my y-coordinate needs to move 10 down. So I'm going to take my y-coordinate and I'm going to subtract 10 from it. So let's look at point A. I'm not moving it side to side, so the -5 can stay -5, but the 3 has to move 10 down, and after that move it'll be -7. Okay, let's look at B. -5 in my x spot is not going to shift, so it's going to stay -5. But my y-coordinate 5 is going to move 10 down. And after that move, it'll be sitting at -5. Pause me while you work on filling in the rest of this chart and come back when you're ready for checking. So here are my answers to that second translation column. All right, on our last column, we're going to do two things. We're going to translate 2 to the left and 3 up. So my x-coordinate is going to change. I'm going to move everything on the x 2 to the left. So that means I'm going to take my x-coordinate and subtract 2. And then on my y-coordinate, I'm moving 3 up. So I'm taking my y and I'm adding 3 to it. All right, so let's look at point A. Excuse me. If I take -5 and I move 2 to the left, I will be at -7. The y-coordinate was 3, and I'm going to move that 3 up, so it's now sitting at 6. Let's look at our b coordinate. Again, if I'm at -5 and I move 2 to the left, I'll be at -7. If I'm at 5 for my y-coordinate, and I move 3 up, I will now be at 8. Pause while you finish this column and come back when you're ready for checking. And here are my final answers. So in this lesson, you practice the count and draw method as well as using a general rule.